The teams have been working really, really hard, and we're very, very excited to see what they've come up with. So we would like to thank UVA, Virginia Tech, and George Mason for partnering with us on this event, for Avalon Bay for sponsoring our lunch yesterday, which was delicious, and also for UVA, Virginia Tech for hosting us in this location. This is their combined building. I'd like to recognize Supervisor Hudgens, who's here. Thank you very much. So you guys have a real decision maker, a leader here for Fairfax County that helps and that your ideas will help influence all of our thinking and how we do things. Again, this event is part of a series of events and activities that we're doing to grow the innovation ecosystem in Fairfax County. And it's about partnering with the Brain Trust that's here in the county, connecting folks that know all about new technologies and processing data and how do we use data to help solve our most pressing issues. And we've got a really engaged group of staff and team in the Housing Authority who have embraced this whole concept wholeheartedly. They've had multiple people floating around during the whole event, kind of connecting and sharing their expertise. We've had advocates that have been here, and others from other county agencies that have been here just kind of floating around and lending their ideas and thoughts and sharing with the team members. And hopefully you guys found that helpful. With that, I will just kind of like pass it on to the team members. Each team member has 10 minutes to present. Oh, I have to introduce the judges. Yes, so please, actually, I'm going to ask the judges to introduce themselves. We have a great panel of judges, a great mix of folks, and we're so excited to have you guys here. So I'll start with Sean Nallon.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Sean Nallon. I'm with George Mason University. I recognize a few of you guys. I am the Associate Vice President for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, which is a long way of saying that I work with our faculty and our students and our alumni and many others who are either thinking about starting a company or in the process of starting a company or want to be entrepreneurs and want to go work for a startup company. That whole kind of innovation entrepreneurial set of pathways that we're working to create at George Mason. So prior to that, for 5 years, I was on the investment team at the CIT Gap Funds, which is an early stage investment organization here in Virginia. I've been an operator of companies. I've started a couple, and finished a couple too. Some better than others, one better than another. Anyway, so I'm delighted to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Good afternoon. I'm David Heyman. I'm the founder and one of the leaders of the Smart City Works Business Actuator. We're a next generation business accelerator here in Northern Virginia for the region. We look at emerging early stage ventures and we help them go to market, but we're exclusively focused on urban tech and helping cities reinvent cities. That is to say, how do we design, build, and operate cities better so that they're smarter, safer, more resilient, more sustainable. Delighted to see you guys here. We last fall issued our first call for innovation in the affordable housing space, and we're looking to see some innovators, see what you guys have. I started my career as a system software engineer, so I'm interested in looking under the hood of what you guys have. I did industrial automation, robotics for about 10 years before getting involved in national security. The last 20 years I've been in the national security community at the federal government level. But I'm back to my roots and looking forward to meeting you all today. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Matt Barkley, and I just came in to get out of the cold, and I heard there was coffee in here. So I actually work for Fairfax County government. I'm the Director of Disability Services Planning and Development for the Fairfax County Department of Family Services. And they know it's a mouthful, so try to keep the rest of my comments less of a mouthful than my title. But I'm really excited about the project that you're working on because it's something knowing that we work with individuals with disabilities on a daily basis who are in need of housing and who face discrimination when they're trying to locate affordable, accessible, integrated housing. So applaud all of you for the work that you're doing, and I'm very excited to see what you've come up with. So thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Angie Elboy. I am a realtor full-time, and I am a member of the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors, who is a member of the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority Council, and that's how I got to be here today. I've been in the industry for the last 13 years, and I also sit as a member of the Virginia Board of Directors, Realtors Board of Directors. So excited to see what you guys have and how that can help the population that's living in Northern Virginia have great housing.
Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Jonas, and I serve as the Vice Chair for the Fairfax County Redevelopment and Housing Authority. I'm also lucky enough to serve as the Chair of the Planning Commission in the town of Herndon. In my spare time, I work in the software industry. I sell software in the search space currently, and I'm excited to be at a hackathon that doesn't have to do with software. So thank you all for being here today. The work that you're doing, the innovation that you're providing, and the thought leadership that you're giving us will be so helpful as we work towards solving the problem of affordable housing and accessible housing in Fairfax County.
Thank you, judges, so much. I also would like to recognize Supervisor McKay and Supervisor Fast, who have joined us as well from our board. This is great. This is we're so excited to have 3 board members here, so thank you so much for coming. So we're ready to go ahead and start with our first team. I think we've got, our first team is called housing.gov. Come on down. Tell the group just a little bit about yourself while you're setting up. So like, you guys all met here or something?
Yeah, we met yesterday.
Yeah, this is really cool.
We were leftover.
So we're at housing.gov. My name is Nathaniel Root.
I'm Talani Ayefele.
Peter Nitevich. Mark Sorensen.
Marcel Hernandez.
And this is our project.
Okay, so we decided to go with the problem set 1A, where we're looking at individuals who are differently abled and are in need of affordable, accessible, and integrated housing. We're looking at not only public, but also private and nonprofit organizations who have our own units with accessibility options. And we're looking to see how we can match these applicants with their differently abled unit or living spaces.
So we wanted to go over kind of how we approached the problem. We were really looking at what was out there and who manages those solutions, what their limitations were, and what they do well. And then we try to think of what could be a new or updated solution for that, and what would be included in that. And we did develop a Django example, which we'll go over, I think, at the end. And our overall scope was kind of a preliminary looking at properties that have loans or restrictive covenants with state or local agencies. These were some of the websites we looked at and some of the things that they had that we thought we could include in our website. The first one had a subsidy search, which was very useful. The second one had just a Section 8 search. The third one had separated wait lists for Section 8 public housing. And then the fourth one was actually kind of the most comprehensive one. It had very many options. That was kind of the best one we saw, where you could choose like which language the landlord speaks, kind of location of transit, shopping, and hospitals nearby within like a block or a mile or more. You could search by area median income, and there were a lot of accessible and other options, such as all electric appliances, units on first floor, low countertops, grab bars, accessible flooring for wheelchairs, and many more. And then the last one was a map that had kind of the community assisted living and county facilities available around the area.
So there's a lot of like good features and tool sets out there already, but there were some limitations that we saw. One of which was that you've got all these different tool sets that are kind of dispersed, and so not all landlords are on one system. And so part of that solution is we wanted to see a centrally managed system managed. Our thought is for the VHDA to have this managed and included as a requirement in loan docs, because the scope that we're looking at is properties that already have covenants with state and local agencies. And the VHDA already has some requirements in terms of nonprofits working with the Web Tenant Compliant Management System. So there's already kind of rules in place for nonprofits being used to working with technology and VHDA. Timeliness. So one of the things is that another thing we're looking at is like how fast are matches updated and whether or not landlords are actually using the system on a routine basis. And so if we can get buy-in from the landlords to understand, like, look, this is going to help you get these ADA units filled. It makes it so that you're fulfilling mission-driven objectives, and then reducing time that participants or applicants are wasting on looking for appropriate units or needing to make requests in the future. And precision, so being a little bit more specific about features that are unit specific. So a lot of the different websites were kind of on the property level. So like, hey, we've got these units in the property that are available, and this property has these accessibility features, but it didn't necessarily link units with those accessibility features. So letting applicants know, like, oh, we've got X number of units with these features that work for me. And so up next is kind of a demonstration of what this website could look like. So if you go up, there's a login button over here that you click on, log in. And this particular applicant has already filled out their initial sign up like requirements. So thing like, what do I need in my building? Like, what do I want? This particular individual is hearing impaired and mobility impaired. And so so what's happened is once they fill that out, the website has algorithm matching saying like, oh, look, here's Westwood Oaks. This is a really good match. You can't see it on the side, but it's showing 100% match. So I'm like, oh, that's great. Let me go take a look at that. Click on that. It brings up a property sheet notifying you that you've been included on the wait list, which automatically happens once you've signed up and the program's matched you. It will automatically throw you on the wait list. You can go through the properties after that and then remove yourself from properties that you do not want. So it makes it a little bit easier for you to get in into the wait list, a little bit less stress. But right now it looks like there is no availability in the units. And you also have some property manager information over here, which happens to be a Persian Falcon. So I'm gonna go back and take a look at some other properties. I'm looking at the Finley, but it's a low match. It doesn't have hard of hearing features. So it's the algorithm's doing a soft match, saying like, hey, maybe this isn't a great feature, but maybe you still like it. I don't want it. Take it off my list. Take a look at the Wedgwood. Same thing. So it's available, but we're not available. So right now I'm going to go take a look at my preferences. It's going to say, hello, I'm Southern Albatross. And you're able to edit your preferences after the fact. So your disabilities will probably stay the same, but you can change things on like unit size requirements, unit features, so grab bars, and some of the things that were talked about before. If you want to edit, you click down here. So we only have hearing impairment and physical impairment in this example, but it would include intellectual impairments and visual impairments as well. And while I'm on this page, I just got a notification. Looks like Unit 116 just became available. I'm going to click on this and go over here. It's going to give me some direction on what's going to happen. So it's saying I'm first on the wait list for Unit 116, and it is available. If I don't want this unit, I can click the X here, and it takes me off that wait list. And then lets me know that the property manager should be reaching out to me, or if I want to take my own prerogative, then I can reach out to them as well.
So the policy and implementation. The waitlist is an important feature that we decided to add within that the application, because we wanted the ability to have landlords be able to see exactly who's waiting for their units, as well as we wanted our applicants to see what units are available in the spread of location that they are looking for. We'd also like to get a granular approach at looking at the data to provide analysis for people with disabilities and what types of options that they're most likely to be looking for, and what type of options they're most likely to choose. Some key participants that we feel would really benefit from this data are the landlords in question, as well as the VHDA. Local jurisdictions such as Fairfax County will be able to take an inquiry on the types of data that this system is generating, as well as working with tech groups, which we would invite to add to our software, such as Social Solutions or the Georgia Housing Search, to more refine our scope.
So in terms of the flow, and the kind of walk through a little bit, but just under the hood how it works is there is really two views, sort of the applicant and the landlord view. The applicant and the landlord both fill out a set of information about, either the properties that they have available and the units as well. So Nathaniel mentioned that kind of the limitation currently is property is almost the same thing as unit on a lot of websites. We want to keep those separate because a wheelchair ramp in an apartment complex will benefit every unit, right? But then each unit might or might not have grab bars. So those are two different things, and we want to keep property and units as sort of separate entities. And all of this feeds into a database that will be very secure. And then within the database, given the information from the landlords, the properties, and the applicants, there's a distance matching algorithm that Masa will talk about, and that's what generates the wait list and ranking order.
So this is a coarse-grained view of the problem that we're trying to solve in distance matching algorithm. And the way it works is that we map each of the tenants to the features that they have on the left-hand side, and then we map the landlords to the features that they can offer for us in their properties. So the way we're trying to somehow relate each tenant to the proper landlord. And the way we do that, we transfer these features into binary numbers. And after transferring them to the binary numbers, we kind of look into the Euclidean distance between these two metrics that we have, and we come up with a big table, which includes the distance between each tenant from each landlord. And when I talk about distance here, it means how the features are matching. It's like if the tenant is looking for some options and the landlord is able to provide those options, they will be closer to each other. So in this example, tenant number 1 is closer to landlord number 1, so they will match, and tenant number 2 is closer to landlord number 2. So this is how they will match. But this is just the sample data. In the next slide, we have statistical information of the data that is provided by Department of Housing from Fairfax County. This information is collected from 13,000 applicants. And we have all of the features that are provided by these applicants. In the next slide, we have the same type of illustration for the data that we have on the landlords and the properties and the features that their properties are having, like having grab bars or like special lighting or whatever that they are able to offer at this moment. So putting all this together and doing our running our algorithm, we have the big matrix here, which is in fact 13,000 by 13,000, but you're able to see just a little bit of this matrix because it's very huge and it holds all of the distances of each tenant from each of the landlords. So what we do is we look into them one by one and try to match each tenant to the proper landlord, to the closest landlord. And as a result, in the next slide, I am showing you here how the first 27 tenants are matched to the landlords with their unique identifiers. And because of lack of space, the rest is not available. So this is just a simple illustration of what we're planning to do. And that's it for now. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Really cool. Yeah, I hope you guys got everything in. Yeah. We really appreciate it. They've been working really, really hard. And if you had any other insights or anything, I appreciate the fact that you showed some of the data that from Fairfax County, and that website looked really cool. And then you had a live match happening right then and there, right? That's pretty cool too. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Oh, well, 5 minutes questions. Yeah, do it now. Do it now. 5 minutes questions.
I have a question for you. First of all, what do you think is the hardest part of this in terms of making it successful?
I can take that one. I think one of the hardest parts is from like a buy-in perspective. So finding the right way to get this solution out there, because you do have a couple of these solutions. I think the thing that makes the most sense is working with a company like Social Solutions or whatever company Georgia Housing Online is using, and getting them to see like these are what we need to make this a really useful product. I think having a large state agency backing this and making this a requirement of nonprofits makes it easier to implement and make sure that there's user uptake as well. Because it's something that nonprofits typically have very long waiting lists, so they don't necessarily need to advertise their units as frequently.
Second question for two of you have to answer this. What motivated you to do the hackathon, this hackathon?
Oh, wow. Just practice for other hackathons. Just keep the momentum going.
Maybe I can take it.
Yeah, sure.
So I come from engineering background, but so maybe in the first couple of hours, I was finding it very hard to relate to this type of hackathon where it's not just resistors, capacitors, or just software. But what this hackathon is adding to me is a more tangible problem. So it opens my mind, and I can apply my skills to solve the problems that are out there, and I never thought about them before.
Yeah, and I think all of us kind of come from slightly different backgrounds. I work on data analysis now, but I used to work on homelessness policy. So I've never worked, even though they overlap, there's still a huge silo between affordable housing, accessible housing, and then homelessness, right? What is available for individuals experiencing homelessness. And so to me, that was really interesting to think about it in terms of accessible housing. It's slightly different. And yet I realized on the waiting list that most of the needs really were that people didn't have a current home. So I think there's a much bigger overlap than I think many people realize. That's what motivated me.
Like I've had trouble finding housing before. I actually lived in a firehouse for 2 years as a volunteer firefighter because I needed a place to live. So like this also kind of hits close to home. And I've done work in assisted living facilities too.
So did you guys talk about kind of the business model to support a platform like this? Like who pays for it?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So the route we decided to take was, as our name states, housing.gov. But when you take a look at the service in question, it really comes down to the data and the numbers. If you can make the sale that using our system could not only benefit the applicants but really benefit the landlords as well. There are plenty of people, property owners, unit business managers, property management companies that have open spaces and availability, and yet they're not able to reach the 13,000 applicants that are in desperate need of housing. With this approach, when you take it at this level, you're taking a very complex problem and making it extremely simple for both parties to be able to see what's available, and then both parties to be able to match those availabilities.
So you thought a little bit, I saw about reporting. Have you thought a little bit about how you could address the white space in the industry with the data you're collecting? For example, you talked about being able to find what was being most accommodated. Do you think this could help us identify gaps?
I think so,
Yeah, you mean in terms of there are individuals with particular needs, but those needs are not being met, right?
Right.
Yes, absolutely. So this whole wait list idea that we have would identify the gaps because if there are a lot of individuals on the wait list, those are all individuals who are waiting for housing, but there might not be a particular match, at least at that time. And so I think, what our vision is that this is real time, that this algorithm would run pretty much all the time. And that's what would make it accessible to people in the sense of you would be able to get the number of individuals, looking for housing, for example, in Fairfax County with those particular needs. So I think that that's the real benefit of this.
So the way we designed this, every time there is a change in the system, everything is going to be updated. So the waiting list is going to be updated. And usually the learning comes in when you have big data and you have your learning algorithm, the precision goes higher compared to the case that it's just human intervention. So the accuracy will be definitely much better.
think the value in the data that you're collecting is what would make it something that can help fund it as well. I think the developers would be interested in seeing that.
Oh.
I got one more quick question. Do you guys have the opportunity to, I mean, it sounds like some of you have been in the space, but to actually go out and talk to property owners, property managers, or for that matter, potential tenants?
We do have a real estate specialist over there.
I come from the real estate industry. I'm also in real estate development right now. We didn't go out and talk to anyone, but we kind of thought about what would be kind of some issues that would come about or what they would think about or things that would.
Okay.
Yeah, and I talked really briefly with the company that manages one of the existing websites, the Virginia Housing Search. You know, what they mentioned is their terms and conditions are kind of limited in a sense. When landlords post on that website, it's only limited to that website. You know, and I think, and obviously as one individual, I couldn't get them to kind of change that policy, but I think if, you know, something that comes out of this could be like a push to encourage landlords to share. I mean, if you have units available, why not share it right with other platforms? And so this is where, you know, kind of the buy-in would come in. If we say this is kind of a, you know, VHDA encouraged initiative or Fairfax County encouraged initiative, that's hopefully where people would be able to say, oh, sure, you know, if I'm a landlord, I have all these units, I post on this website and realize, you know, that I should disseminate this information a little bit more broadly.
As far as just, I'll piggyback off of what Peter was saying. As far as from the applications perspective, we do, I've personally done work with differently abled people, and I've recognized the difficulties with which they go about finding housing. A close friend of mine, she is I believe a quadriplegic, and she was looking at finding housing that was very close to her university, but because of basically the paperwork and the difficulties and the intricacies of which filling that out was outside of her reach at the time. She has to make a space that's very, very far away from the university which she teaches, and it's a difference between, you know, being about 20 minutes away from the location that she needs and being, you know, about a 45-minute drive away from the location where she needs to be.
Last question. Okay, sorry. For you to deploy this in the real world, what are the organizations that you need inputs from to be successful in order of your priorities?
I'll take that for you.
Well, definitely VHDA, Fairfax County. I think the emphasis, I think that's the software company that's behind the kind of search site that we used kind of as guidance. What else?
I mean, landlord buy-in as
Yeah.
well. So like understanding like what would make the system useful from the landlord perspective. So I work for a nonprofit housing developer, and one of a block for us is if like technology is not immediately useful for us, then like it's we'll fulfill a requirement, but we're not going to go beyond that. And so if you can make it a useful tool from the landlord's perspective as well, then I think you can make something that's like much snappier.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
guys. Thank you. So our next team is the GMU geographers. Come on down, guys.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
I think we can do it.
You guys are all from the College of Science, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, thank you for representing.
Hello everyone, my name is Dan, and we are team GMU geographers. Geographers, all of us is from George Mason University Department of Geography and Geoinformation Science, and we are current PhD students. And our topic is link house through spatial thinking. So basically, we want to show how geography solving housing problem using their spatial thinking. Now I'm gonna do a quick introduction, and people talk about sharing a lot nowadays, like a share bag and also share room like Airbnb. So our team slogan for this housing project is sharing is caring. So we hope to build a sharing economy to create synergy between government and industry. So like we know, government is about fairness and market is about efficiency. So how can we combine the advantages of these two parties? Very important. So I think the key is that governments can create maybe a shared data portal or IT portal to allow market players to make their the innovation and serve for more individuals who need this kind of service. So here is the challenging solutions we propose. And so current status is we hoping to we know that from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, they offer some data and service for the customer who need some special housing. But those information is very limited. And also the private sector like Zillow or Redfin, they have a lot of information about housing, and they have a large database to share the more information about the details of each house. So we hope to combine these two services together, and so that the customer can directly through our web mapping application to directly searching and also doing some updates through the system. For example, the landlord, they can update and edit the information and even upload their photos through our platform. And for the applicants, they can searching the house they need through zip code. So first we do a quick search through the Alexa about the general information, visitor information about Zillow and the VHDA, and we found that it's well obvious that Zillow have got a very high rank of visitors, and they have many data from on Alexa.com, and because of the VHDA, they have very limited information, and so that maybe not too many visitors. So the linked house idea, I think these are our advantages. We hope to build a standardizing database accessible API for users, and we hope to volunteering the mechanism to allow private landlords to contribute by themselves. And also we hope to get policy support from government. So like, for example, it's very think about Google Translate a market up a language to help create a huge boost for transit applications and website markets. So now here is the visualization of our interface. From the first picture, as we can see, we can visualize all the housing with the accessibility information shown in the map. And when you click each dot, you can find the detailed information about the like address and bedroom numbers and more information. And we also can have a function, you can do a heat map to show which part have more denser available houses. And also, if landlord they have their own picture, they can actually upload by themselves, and each picture will save as a link in their record. So when you can so other people can, like applicants, they can check those pictures through when they just simply click the point. And we also do some spatial. Later on, Monday we'll do a quick demo for you guys about our platform. So another thing we want to talk about is that we also do a quick demographic analysis. We made two current plan maps for both young people and old people, and in Fairfax County. And through these two maps, we can see which area has more young people and which area have more old people. And the unit is actually the census blocks. No, census tracts, sorry. And so this step, we are hoping to prepare for our next step. So our future work is more focusing on problem 2. How can we matching the young people and old people, like save budget for young people, but also help to care about old people. So we hope to add more functions in our application to help match old adults and young people together, and also build a platform for landlords and renters to help them communicate conveniently, like instant message box. They can just type in their information and communicate with each other. And the third is we can add more transportation information like few bus stops and also metro stations into our information platform. Now Monfei can do a quick demo about our web mapping applications.
So the data we choose for this simple demonstration is two sources. One is from the Uniform Federal Accessibility Standard Units from Fairfax City Data Portal. So totally there's 87 records, and they are labeled as blue marker in this map. I make it larger. And those red point is the data we randomly choose from the Zillow API, and it's from all residential address of Fairfax County. So totally it's 800 of them.
The total number of the Fairfax residential addresses we got from Zillow is actually 300,000, but because the limitation of our current database, so we only show randomly select 800 samples in this visualization.
Sorry, can I stop you because I don't want to miss this important point. What's red dot and what's blue dot?
So the blue dot is from the UFAS data that we got, and
the blue dot is actually the Uniform Federal Accessibility Standard information from the Fairfax County, which is in the shared link of our data list. So and the total number is only
the blue is the government data, and this is Zillow's data. That's two types of data.
Is it housing?
Yes, housing.
Rentals.
Yeah.
So we want to combine those commercial data and the government data to see if we can match them to do the information sharing. So first we add a very simple search function here. So for example, if we are looking for the house in Centerville, search by zip code is the first step. And we could also check the basic information of those houses. So we could say the government house, we have as basic information, but we have nothing about the information of the house, like how many bedroom, how many bathroom, and the year of the build, but we have the information of the accessibility. So that's the data we got. But the data from Zillow, we have those information, like we have the how large it and how it sold last time, but we don't have any information about the accessibility. So we want to combine those two different sources of information together. So our next step is to upgrade our web application. Is after we could after the verification of the ID of the landlord, they could upload their information about accessibility and the photo from our user interface, and then we could match those records from the government record. So we could like to share the information between the commercial source and the government source to get a better platform. Yes.
Yeah, I think I can make a conclusion. So basically, what we're trying to do is to help like the team one. So basically, we want the government have an API that can share the information to allow innovation in business sector. That's a very simple idea, because right now the government try to build a website. Honestly, it's not so good, right? Yeah. So what we're trying to do is not a very good interface here, but in the back end, we combine all the government data source and create a commonly accessible API. So think about Zillow. We use our API to do their own algorithm to optimize. So that's our main idea about sharing the data from government to the business. That's the key point, and that's the most important thing. It's not the government to do all the work, but the most important thing is the government to share the data with the business sector so that like the team one can make their own innovation. Different diversity of the company, they will make their own different innovations. Okay.
Thank you.
One second. I have another makeup. When we use the private data, for example, when we want to find the house, we will use a lot of the commercial software. And if in our application, we have another hypothesis that if the landowner wants to share their house with disability or anything else, for anyone else, if they don't have such of the assessment, like they didn't have such style for their house or the equipment for their house, they can use this platform to make some application that I want to enhance our home for disability, for the aging people. So we will have two interfaces. One is for the renters, one is for the landowners. So they have connected with this application. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Questions from the judges? Great job, guys.
I have a question. So what keeps a Zillow, for example, from adding a bunch of additional fields that have to do with accessibility, right? So they've already got loads and loads of data that get crowdsourced basically by both sides of the ledger. Why wouldn't they just go ahead and do something like this on their own without government involvement?
Yeah, I think that, like I said, because the policy is decided by government, so this is very sensitive issues. They don't want to, so that's why I think we suggest, our team we can build a standards, because government is the expert, they are not. So they should be careful about this kind of thing. So they are conservative on their standpoint to make this kind of innovations. So government needs to provide the standards with the easy accessible for their programmers to use the data. That's, I think, yeah, because this is really sensitive. They don't want to quickly to do something that without government support. However, right now, as what we really have a bad experience with this hackathon to collect data. That's really the pain point of business side, right? You want to include the things for the people. Like even the team one will have same experience like us. Really painful to collect all the data. So our idea is to create an API with one line of code in like if you see our code, just one line of code. We call the database with all the government certificate information to pass to the Zillow, right? Yeah.
So, a similar angle that I was kind of curious about. Because you want to fuse these two, and you want to learn more about the Zillow data, right? You want more information on the accessibility. Am I understanding that right? Right? How do you get Zillow to play ball in this game?
Because our API. So this information will hold by the government, not hold by Zillow. So Zillow basically, they will get the shared data from government on this information.
But to Sean's point, why can't Zillow just say, give us additional information on your house? Or
so I can give the example that we already mentioned about the Google. So the transit data. So before Google, like 3 years ago, they do the transit standardizations. So government has all kinds of transit data out there, but no innovation is happening. But when Google helped the government make a standardized API, the language of the data, you can see in the last 3 years, all different apps, websites come out of the market. Why? Actually, it's not because government don't have the data, because they don't have an API for the data. So that's why I think this is our focus. Yeah.
Jen, maybe I have some example for your question. And for example, for a commercial company, if they provide more information, it's very hard for them to check the data. For example, you said this house is disabled friendly, and how to prove it? So if we just give a checkbox that it is, no, it's not for the commercial company. It's for the government's duty to check the house. Yeah.
I do have another question if you want to monopolize, but how do you make money?
Yeah, so it's our lab with our professor. It's a professional thing. We build a database to serve different, we're working with NASA, you know. So if any government wants to cooperate with us, of course, we maybe like entrepreneurs. So we build that a license fee or something basic checkup for, you know, this kind of, so basically government is pay the taxpayers, right? So government can have a funding, help us to build the infrastructure. Of course, the data will be free to the people who wants to use our database, our APIs. So that's, I think this is the free for the market to use, but we will make money through the government project. I think that's the public sector fundings, right? That's the.
Can I ask a quick last question, maybe?
That's not our expert.
You talk about government as though it's this monolithic thing. But you've got local government, you've got state government, you've got federal government, you've got different agencies and things like that. Have you taken that into account, or are you really thinking about government as monolithic and they tell us what the rules are?
Yeah, I know it's different in US. Definitely. I think that if any opportunities, we're open to discuss with them. But I think for this kind of project, of course, local government is the key players. So, you know, if there's any opportunity, you can reach to our lab. We can build a portal. It's kind of a portal that put all the data in one source and helping the business to accelerate.
Guys, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
You guys did a great job. I'm really excited to have the college side represented. Supervisor McKay,
I'm good. I actually have to leave to head to our legislative committee meeting in the main government center. Get ready for that.
You're not going to write a check for these guys?
I would if I had a check. Love it, though. Good job. Thank you.
There's always time though.
Our next team, we actually have the next two teams are the house guides, but they have broken up into two teams because they addressed both problem 1A and problem 2. So welcome to House Guides 1.
Hi everyone. My name is Harold Walbert. I am a manager at Guidehouse. We're a consulting firm. I have Stephanie and Cece with me right here, and we decided that we would tackle the question 1A. One of the things that we saw between question 1A and question 2 was the data that we had available. People talked earlier about the data we had and the data that we did not have. We know that there is a set of housing in Fairfax County that has had adjustments made, maybe high toilets, it may be ramps, maybe wheelchair accessible, but we know that this stock is not large enough to meet the needs of all the people in Fairfax County. And so one of the things that we wanted to do is try to figure out a way, try to understand how we could take not only the existing data that we have from publicly available sources that we have available in this hackathon, but then also connect it to data from private owners and then also source it from on the web, maybe by web scraping and connecting individuals as well, and creating one centralized database that will allow the folks in Fairfax County to actually see what we have available. Right here. So that's just to kick it off. I'm going to let Stephanie and Cece take over the next couple slides, and then we're going to also have a demo as well.
Yeah, so we start out with the current situation and the pain points, and like we interviewed like lot of guides, other person like we can see on the demand side, like the like the people who needs access for house, they are like the demand is far outweigh the supply, and the lake is a comprehensive centralized resource, like to finding where I can apply it, like right now it's only they join the waiting list, or they just searching like random online googling is Zillow, or like a different source. They don't have a centralized source to looking for that. And also like some like units county provide to the individuals, they contact them and they are in the waiting list for like months or even years. But when they contact them, they find the features for this unit is not properly match their needs, like even some distance with with their working place, or distance from like grocery or families. And for the like existing housing supply, like right now is our county, they are lacking information like for the on the private and non-profit organization housing resources, right? And they also have insufficient data on the applicants, like which will better connect them with the units. Like they only know they are like what kind of a disability they have, but sometimes the other features, like what I talked in the distance of the work, or some like unique demands for the grab, like the grab bar on in the bedroom, something like that. And they will have some like request when they live in the unit. They will have like request to add additional modifications, and like they will sometimes the people they can find it like very much like exactly match individuals, which the features in the unit accessible house is like exceed the needs of the renters. So next page. So we build a system. This is a system architecture we are trying to build. Right now we have the county owner apartment like resource. So we're adding the private owner, non-profit owner, and the web scraping data. Like this is a different data source, and we try to put in a centralized database using the user-friendly website, and like it will more improve during the system. It will improve the matching accuracy and the speed, like and also the applicants will fill their request or searching on the website. There's two ways. I'll explain later. Like they can fill the app in the waiting list, or they can like just searching from like the data we're getting from the web scraping data, and also some private owners like house data in the system. And based on the centralized database, we can based on the user's behavior, like what is the terms they are using or features they are trying to searching in the searching engine, and the match result, like the first team doing the matching things, we can like doing a lot of data analytic basis, structured data, and this data analytic result will help to improve the feature improvement for the website, which like you can have more correct features on the landlord side to upload, and which will easier for the applicants to search, and also like it also have like enough data for the government to doing the next step, like when they want to have more fundings to invest to the county owner property, and then they can like build some standard accessible house, like what kind of the features is most needs, and based on the demanding they build the next house, or they can like modify the current one, and it will save more money.
Thanks, Cece. So going into the data in the aspects, so we're envisioning sort of
four different user definitions, each having their own inputs and interfaces, and then that data will then be appended and merged into the central database. So we've laid out expanding upon the structure that you mentioned just now. The property owners will have the opportunity to enter in information about their available housing, and this could be uploading through the county data that we already have, as well as nonprofit organizations and private owners. And that's what we'll actually demo in a second. And within that, they have the opportunity to check each field that is applicable in terms of the accessible features of their housing units. Prospective applicants will have an ability to apply for a wait list, and within that, they can describe sort of the modifications that they require for their housing and what they're interested in. Renters will eventually have the ability to go in and search for available housing and filter based on the requirements that we're collecting from the private and public owners of the housing. And then we'll also have the ability to pull and web scrape information from publicly available data, and that could happen on an reoccurring basis automatically, and that could then be fed back into the central database. So we'll switch over to the demo.
Okay.
Let's see if I can.
Sure.
So focus, since there was yesterday from talking to everyone, there was a lot of focus on how the demand far outweighs the supply. And for the sake of time, I'll quickly breeze through this demo, but we're collecting information from the public and private housing owners, and they have the ability to kind of go in and enter in information about their home, spanning from basic characteristics to bedrooms and bathrooms. And then we collected all the features that we saw, the modification requests that were made in the open data. So you can go in and select, my house has, in-house elevator, it's a first floor unit, etc. And then we're also collecting information about the unit status and whether or not the leasing price is a fixed base price or an income-based price. So once the user submits the information, they'll be notified that it's submitted, and that is then appended and merged into the central database. And so each person can access this website and enter in their information. So going back to then just this slide basically goes through sort of details about how we want to build out the other interfaces for the other features and the users, including the waiting list for programs, as well as the user interface for searching.
So the future features we might build is some like backend technologies. It's like searching engines. We track the user behavior, helps improve the feature definition. Also some matching algorithm like the team one talking about is which can improve the have a better connection. And also like the data analytics dashboards can provide the government like the counties to all some like the user behavior demand and marketing proportion right now, like try to even the supply and the demand both sides. Like, and also we can expand this system, including like the homeless, displaced, and the elderly populations, which we can like add more portals for them to apply, and like more like in the landlord side we can provide more more house for this kind of version. That's it. Thank you.
So I really liked your repository wizard. I thought that was great. Have you thought about other sort of fields that you could add to that to allow for more data or differentiation between properties?
Absolutely. So right now, I mean, this was the basic solution was we know we have a limited data set. We want to make that more robust. And so you're exactly right. We have that input. We also web scrape. There's certain fields that are going to be available. For example, we developed a web scraper that's going to add to this database that scrapes all the information about wheelchair accessible homes from Craigslist. This is added into the central repository. Private owners can come in or landlords can come in and add in the tool that we just saw. There's going to be necessarily like limited information coming from some places, but we're going to have a wealth of information in others. We would certainly be open to expanding this list or you know, modifying it to make it more applicable for the needs of the county.
So you talked about, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to see if you could scroll down. So
Yes,
you see some of the other
kind of sped through that.
features that you selected.
And users have the ability to go in and edit before they submit. So it's pretty user friendly in that regard. And we want to collect information on kind of within the waiting list portion, you know, depending on kind of common things that come up as demands, we can then kind of inform the features that we're asking about within this interface.
Thank you.
You talked about the demand and the supply. What's this? Let's just talk about Fairfax County. What's the scale of the supply right now? And the scale of demand. Give me a sense of numbers.
In the so there were 3 specific data sets that we saw yesterday that we were given that we had access to look at. One of them looked at the stock that was available right now that had these modifications available. And when the things that were open or going to be open soon, I think there were only 4 lines in there. The overall data set was a bit larger, but stuff was already taken. Now, I could be corrected. Maybe there's more updated data. So in terms of the supply and the data set that at least we had access to, it was very small. So we want to expand that so that we're not just getting the stuff that's available through the government programs in the county, but we're expanding it to the private owners, to individuals who would be willing to rent that have these things as well. But based on the data that we saw that we had available yesterday, the supply, at least in the data set, was quite low compared to the
that's
needs.
one of the critical problems, right? We don't know
Right.
the supply. So how do you propose to build that database? How do you propose to get the supply if you can't find it right? Well, I mean, tell me how you think you're going to get it and how long it will take.
I think some of it probably already exists, but we need to aggregate that information into one place. So one example is a web scraper we built on Craigslist. It takes and looks at the first X number of pages on Craigslist where we know that it's handicap accessible, it's wheelchair accessible. And then it goes and it pulls out the information from there. Where is the location? Is it in Fairfax County? How many bedrooms? And then what we could do in the future is actually start to do natural language processing on each one of those links to pull out specific features that may not be listed in there. So I think building it, I think there's a lot of information out there, and we just need to find a platform to aggregate it and then connect people that have it to the people that need it.
It wasn't clear to me. Do you see this as a tool that, for example, Fairfax County would build and maintain, or is this something that's basically private sector, third party, you know, buy, sell platform?
I would guess Fairfax County since we're here.
But
I don't mean to be flippant, but I don't know.
Is this something that the private sector does, or is this a tool that you would envision being within the department?
I do think it would be within the department. I think it could be a useful thing to make that database available for government. I do.
And I think that we'll have more buy-in from the users to input their information because, you know, having the government be the person responsible or the entity responsible would provide more incentive for them to enter their information.
Also, because like there's some weakness, there's some sensitive data, so it's not good for the private owners to have it. Like we have some ranges based on the income. Maybe that is not good for the private owner to have it, like private sector to have that.
Well, let me just challenge you on that. If you do want the government to be the owner of this, and you're scraping off of Craigslist, how are you going to assure that the government can stand behind the data?
That's like the future features we want to put. Plus, we have some algorithm to scraping the data. Also, we can improve in the data analytic part. We can improve for the data cleaning, automatic cleaning, and it will go directly to the database. So when people want to using a searching engine, like the applicants like using a search engine to search that, it might be not like the public owners, they have all the like the exact address it is, or like all the like exact data, but they still can find something like in which area the house it is, and we still can calculate the distance with the like the working or the family like grocery what they are like really want to the distance, and also like the rent. Some people may be affordable for the rent, like the private owners putting on the Craigslist, and that we have the option. That's why we have the fixed rent option for them to searching that.
Thank you guys so much. Okay, this is our last team that's presenting. Welcome to House Guide number 2.
Yes.
So for this, we tackled question 2. We had a lot more data for question 2 than we did for question 1A. This was more of a question of, can we build an analytics engine to take the existing data, connect it, bring it into one place, ask questions of it, and then provide a useful platform or interface to interact with it so that we can hopefully get to better housing outcomes for seniors and those looking for affordable housing. So I will let Sean and Carlos take over from here.
I'll start. So hello everyone, I'm Carlos. We're also on the analytics team at Guidehouse, a management consulting firm, as Harold said. Just wanted to reiterate that these are working apps. They can be put on websites as they are, even though they're not refined. And actually, they work really well together, which is something that you're going to see as well. So the thing about adding in data, where is it going to be stored? Currently, when she put in that fake data and clicking those check marks, those were held, and you just keep doing that. So that's already accessible in one sense. Our second app goes through. We'll start with the current issue.
Yeah. So the big question that this problem is trying to address is, how can we harness data to help connect residents in ways that are faster, efficient, accurate, to help foster better matches? And so before I answer that question, the issues we need to think about are, there's not information is, there's just not a lot out there, and it's like it's just so spread out, and we need to find a way to connect it. And so there's no really robust analytical methods to take this existing data and then ask questions of it. Of course, this is all looking at from like an analytics perspective. There's a huge human perspective to like housing in this area is super expensive. Students, are struggling to find areas that they can afford. And so really the big benefits that come out of this are we can help older populations reside in their homes longer while providing more affordable housing for younger people, but then also allow residents to connect with each other for better housing options. And so at a high level, what we did first was we connected all this data that's available. We connected the stock of current housing units with dwelling data, which includes data such as how many bathrooms there are in a house, how
bedrooms, if the basement's full, if the basement's livable. I mean, there's a lot of data all from like just the real estate tax information that we were able to aggregate. And yeah, just to keep going, we used mostly Fairfax open data. We also used Google Maps data just to identify like where some things are physically, some colleges and universities, for example. And then yeah, we spent a lot of time on this. We actually, if you want to go to the next slide, we looked at all these houses, and we actually got every house in Fairfax County, every census tract in Fairfax County, identified where the houses were in which tract, got the demographics of the census tracts, applied those to the houses, and then created all these scoring algorithms, and it's in the app and you'll see them, just to identify like who would want to live here. How do you make a good match? Because one of the issues that people don't think about is, even in my apartment, for example, when someone moves out, those are days lost. And the benefit for a landlord is to have someone renew and renew and renew, especially if they'll give them discounts for extended stay. They'll give them discounts for, just being a good match in general. If they get tax credits, for example, for some reason, or if the person has they're differently abled and they want to stay in a home long term, those are the kind of things where you get to be flexible. And something you might not have heard of, which was also in the Fairfax, is Nestlé.io does one extra thing. You can agree to do in-kind services for lower rent. So that's a whole new angle, being willing to do someone's dishes, being willing to walk their dog, being willing to drive them around if they're elderly. So that was the angle we came from. So you'll notice here that we have a lot less on the accessibility and much more on the age matching. Good. Yeah. So the cool thing is, because we have all this data, you can actually search a house. And I would ask you what your address is, but I don't want to put you on the spot. So we'll just hopefully none of you live here. The first thing you'll see is actually we went ahead and looked at a few census tract demographics that we thought were interesting for someone, both on the Fairfax County side who's saying, okay, we have this idea, we want people to be willing to open their homes to people in exchange for in-kind services. Where do we spend the money to do this outreach? Well, it depends on how you define it. You want to look at places that have high public transportation. You want to look at places that are near universities. You want to look at places where they're owned by people who are older and those people live alone. You want to look at places that have, at least one person over the age of 60. So you can actually see, and this is a really cool, colorful map, where we've graded it. A is top 10 percentile, B is top 30, C is top half. Does it cost anything? So, perfect. Yeah. So you can see here, and actually I was very shocked doing this because these colors change like crazy. General score is just a net metric for all the other scores. It's kind of difficult to really go into the math of it, but it just uses a z-score and then converts it to a t-distribution, blah, 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 blah. So this is your grade for how accessible you are to bus stops. And we don't include this map, but you can look at a map of bus stops layered on top of all these things, and it's so surprising. The most surprising for me was the bus stops over 2014 midterm percentage participation. They're completely opposite maps. So distance to libraries, distance to restaurant and retail zone places, community centers, universities, 18 to 24, 24 to 34. One person at least 60 years old, people 65 and up, owner occupied with more rooms than occupants, very useful for something that involves home share, and people living alone. Sean, do you want to go through this one? No, just...
Yeah, so the first tab was a general score of different tracts in Fairfax County.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hit search. So this pulls from the tax data. This house was last sold on this date, built on this date. Doesn't have any half bathrooms. And these are pretty standard real estate definitions. Full basement means the entire thing is able to be stood in. And then half means that it's there's areas that are livable, but you cannot stand in. All right, keep going.
And so the idea is that from a house, you could pull data such as the owner has a dog, has cats, there's all these other attributes, but then also what kind of services they're interested in providing. So maybe someone who wanted to rent out or wanted home share could cook, could shop for groceries, could drive kids around, or could chauffeur. But then, assuming these are all filled in, this is just an example. And then on the renter side, this is where you're going to go.
On the renter side, the same thing. I just wanted to add in that the rental price, it will just rate whether or not it's possible, if it's a good home share match based on all these factors. So let's say someone wants to live there a year, they're okay with dogs, they don't mind if the only room available is a basement, their native language not English, and they're willing to drive. Right.
And so then what this will do is it'll create a match breakdown and say which conditions overlap. So both the owner and the renter are okay with dogs, and the renter owner is willing to lease for more than a year, and the renter will stay for a year. And so there are no two chores that overlap are cooking and driving. And so here we're trying to create matches between owners and then potential renters. And then also based on where the house is located in the census tract, we've assigned grades, kind of like what you're seeing in the first graphic, how rates. So there's the public transit, it's given an F rating, library it's B, and then so on. And these are only a few of the attributes that we're able to include, but then if we want to include things such as, age, like are there a lot of young people around? Are there a lot of old people around? I mean, there's a lot you can do with this. And so really the idea is see how potential renters match with owners, but then also get an idea of what's around, what's far away, etc.
And then for the same reasons it's on the other app, we've looked up a home and we have the data on the home. So that's the first point of reference for like data integrity. If someone's using the other app and they're connected and someone puts in the address, hey, it's autofilling. Hey, is this information correct? Hey, like what other accommodations do you have? And then based on that, I mean, we're talking about two total things that are just going to combine.
And so then, yeah, this is another example. If you wanted to change the house, you can see that this is a pretty bad house to live in, apparently.
So just to make you feel better about the grades, it's just distance from the closest one near you. So you don't have to be next to a specific university. It's just how close are you to your closest university. So it's very not fixed, which is helpful for some of the grades. But yeah, some of these houses are far away. Sorry, guys.
Give it one more slide.
Last slide.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, this is just a home sharing recommendation engine. The technology we use to basically do everything for both of our teams is QGIS for the initial exploration and analysis, but both of the apps which we have deployed right now and are available through this link to anyone, we use R as the analytics engine and R Shiny for creating these interactive dashboards.
And because of that, can be put on any web page even now.
Yes.
Thank you.
So why is home sharing kind of, in your view, kind of its own thing? And why is it not a checkbox in a larger matching algorithm when you're looking for, I'm thinking kind of in the context of like Zillow, right? Where you just say willing to share with somebody else, yes or no.
So there's a really good case study on Nestle.io, which is a startup out in Boston, very worth reading about. The issue was that people didn't really consider the safety aspects of it. It's easy to like rent out a room and then vet people in theory, but Nestle actually, they're a private firm and they take a commission of the rent, and it is just fixed fee. And what they do is they do the background checks, they do the agreement on the in-kind services, they do the legal work to say like, okay, you've listed that this price is based on dishes twice a week, 4 miles of dog walk a week. So there's those aspects of it where you do need a third-party mediator. So that's why you wouldn't really see a checkbox. The other thing is that there's a community involved. They have a Nestle community where people say, oh, you know, I'm 65, it's just me now, my kids are out of the house. Why not have like a 29-year-old grad student from some country I've never been to? Like, that might be a very interesting exploration for my own life. So again, you do the third party, do the vetting, to help you build a community around it and things like that.
So to talk about, differentiate yourself from Nestle. How do you differentiate yourself?
So we looked at their stuff, and one of the big things is they don't really do anything about accommodations. So we didn't really do too much on accessibility because, again, you know, the data about accessibility. The other thing was that we have a lot more base data. We literally, like, you type in an address and it fits in. You can necessarily only has like very basic timings, and we've developed grades for all the census tracts. So we've done some things way more advanced and some things we have like no information on. Other thing is that we've put the in-kind services up front because pricing is so important. And that's something that they do at the very end, which I think doesn't make sense personally. So we're really upfront on we want this match to work. We know price is a big, heavy like point of contention. So let's like get to that first. So I guess we would flip their model.
Who's your client? Who's the user?
So in my mind, Fairfax County or any county holds this information. They let people match, and essentially technically Boston is funding everything Nestle does right now. But in that context, like Fairfax would have to be doing a lot of the holding of the data, the hand holding with people, put the county name on it to say that we've checked local records and police records and things like that. But the client is really people who want to stay in their own homes and are willing to give up a fraction of their rent, and two, millennials who are willing to do favors for lower rent. So it's anyone who wants affordable housing, really, with the client.
So it's older people in homes that they own looking to share it with younger people that need a place to live.
That is
okay. Now you listed the grades A and F, or B and F. You're on an A to F scale, I assume.
Yeah.
Okay.
Slightly augmented just for the data. But yeah, we didn't include D. If we can go to the methodology if you'd like later.
And how much of so some of the data you said was pulled from public records?
A lot of
it. A lot of it, right? That's really my question. As you think about the solution, how much of it is public record and thus, in theory, valid? And how much of it is user generated and therefore questionable or quick to go out of date?
In terms of the information that they put in would be what they're looking for at the current time, but what's nice about this is we've automated it, so if we get a new feed or we get updated data, we already have the code, we have it ready to run, and we could update this as needed. So hopefully the going out of date wouldn't be too much of an issue because we've automated the background processes.
And as for accuracy, I mean, really you just need that first renter. I mean, if someone, moves into this home, because we're having flexible lease days, so, most lease terms are a year. We have 30, 60, 90, whatever range you both accept. Once you get the first person in, that's when you get the accuracy of like, oh, these walls are not wide enough. These, there was not ramps for this stuff. And then, because you have a third party who's done all the legal contracting, you already have the entire basis for saying like, oh, this is like a breach.
Who would be the third party doing the legal contract?
So currently, Nestorly does all that for Boston. To answer that question, they have a legal team do it. But I'm not sure what the best thing for Fairfax would be. My perception is that Fairfax would start off doing as much as they can to understand everything they can.
Governments don't have a lot of resources, and I notice a lot of folks here think the government's the customer for everything.
It has resources.
It has resources. I'm just wondering, particularly given Sean's question about others who are out there, you gave a very good answer about the difference between the kind of communities that Nestorly serves versus Zillow or other private sector. But why wouldn't you consider leasing or providing an API of some sort to companies that are already out just renting places and say, hey, we can provide an additional, we can upscale your current product and provide you an API that allows people to do a match.
So this kind of goes back to what another team said, is that there's a hilariously low amount of standardization. If you look at like MLS data for like all kind of real estate companies, there is no standardization at all. So there could, if you wanted to implement that, you would need like a national standards. And for us to come in and say like, we're going to improve all this private industry stuff, I think it's kind of out of place. I really do think that if you just hone in on one issue, right now it's, there's 11 universities in Fairfax County. We can grade the census tracts based on their distances to these places. We can match people who like need affordable homes with people who would, gain more than just money. Like they would gain like a roommate, someone who would cook for them, someone to learn from. So like that's a completely different thing than like just being another Zillow, another apartment listing, another.
So what you just said to me is, before I vote for you, I should vote for number 2, right? Because you need their standard. Do you need that?
I thought I said the opposite of that.
You said there's no standard out there for real estate. They're developing. Aren't you guys developing that? Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. If you want to.
Right. In order for you to succeed, we need them to succeed. Is that what you're talking about?
In order for us to sell out, we would need that.
Last question that I have for you is, how would you address differences in jurisdictional policies? So, for example, the town of Herndon might have a different standard for occupancy and number of renters in a home than maybe Falls Church. How would that be addressed?
We have all of the GIS data underlying this. We can match it up. If there are differences, I mean, that could be accounted for, and we could build that into the tool if that's something that's necessary. That's something that we could code up.
And we put it really
I'm sorry, but GIS is
Geographic.
mapping, right, GIS is mapping, and her question was about policy.
Right, well, we know where the places are, so if we know that there are certain policies in this geographic location versus just geographic location, we know if you're looking for an address here, we're gonna know where it is, and we're gonna be able to apply those policies if they're different than somewhere else. So it's just, we know where the stuff is.
Just to add the detail, like we did a threshold where you had to have a minimum number of rooms, the number of occupants had to be larger than or less than your number of rooms. All those business rules could be changed by
jurisdiction.
Right, last question. What motivated you to participate in this hackathon?
I think everybody on the team likes solving applied problems. We're all in the analytics group. We all have different backgrounds coming into it, but I found out about this through an email, through university, and I thought this would be perfect for us. We like solving applied problems using computational tools and empirical data. We wanted to be involved.
Plus the rent's expensive, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. I also wanted to give the observers, we had a couple of, we had several observers and several advocates that came that kind of generated some ideas and thoughts as they were floating around listening to the teams. And I just wanted to give, just kind of give them, just give it 5-10 minutes to spend just hearing from them. Any takers? Hello? Yes.
I don't have a PowerPoint, so, but I have 25 copies if somebody wants to just distribute these.
Are they all the same?
Yes. There may be enough for share, since we're talking about sharing. I'm just going to give you a little bit of my background so you're like, who is this person and why is she here? And the folks in the back, if my voice gets low, please wave your hands, jump up and down, and I'll try to increase my volume. My name is Lois Passman. I've been a resident of Fairfax County for multiple decades since the 1970s. My home has been in the Mount Vernon Magisterial District, home to Richmond Highway, Fort Belvoir, and Mount Vernon Hospital. I've been a secondary and college English teacher, and then I became a civilian with the Department of Army with a focus on curriculum development and training the trainer. Several of my volunteer focus areas have been quality public education. I was a co-founder of the first Academic Boosters Corporation in Mount Vernon High School. Housing decisions as they affect the demographics of public schools to avoid the tipping point, and preventing cell phone towers on school sites. As a volunteer, I also represent Mount Vernon District on the Adult and Community Education Advisory Committee to the FCPS School Board since the 1980s, and one of our focus areas is meeting the needs of the vulnerable population who need advocates. And through community education courses, adult ESOL, and adult high school completion, we enable Fairfax County residents to climb the economic ladder. And the first rung in that ladder is affordable, accessible, and appropriate housing. To complement the research that the various teams have done, I've drafted a potential marketing plan that responds to challenge 1A. And the key line there was, however, property owners who own modified units often have difficulty finding applicants in need of these features and may rent them to people without the applicable disabilities. So what I've devised here is sort of a marketing plan and trying to come up with some catchy terms. Find the resources and make the connections, a form of reaching out. Action to access to accessibility, or just access to accessibility. And I did it with a focus on Fairfax County and the idea where you generate a buzz. And the first thing I thought of was, isn't there something that can go on the real estate property tax bill? So that there's a form perhaps that's included, or they can access something on a website and indicate what kind of housing they have already in place, what they might be willing to develop if they're interested in the sharing mode. Well, then that begs the question, well, if they don't have a mortgage, well, that was the don't have a mortgage people, okay. Those who do have it, it's all processed through their checking account and a lender, and so it's a little more complicated. And so I just put a task line down. There must be a way of reaching these folks, and that's probably a greater proportion of the homeowner representation in the county. Through the real estate companies, they can put something on their wall, a sign, a poster, access to accessibility, including signage in their offices. And then people might ask, well, what is that all about? And so, of course, getting people to feel comfortable advertising their home in a way that would reveal there's a ramp, or there's this, or there's that. And they may feel, well, that might limit the number of people who want to purchase their home because, well, gee, what am I going to do with a ramp in front of the house? That kind of thing. So it's educating the public as well that it's okay to have a ramp. I'll find my place now. Okay. And all the publications that are out there. The Metro Washington area, you've got the Washington Post local living section. They do feature articles right at the beginning, or their feature article they'll announce on the cover. So there could be a feature article about this access to accessibility. And usually the article is substantial with pictures. And I don't know how the pricing of that goes. My past experience a long time ago is that if you have an article, you prepare the article and maybe provide a picture, there's no cost because you've given them content. I don't know how it works now. The real estate sections on Saturday and Sunday. Within Fairfax County, you have the Golden Gazette, and that always starts with an article on the first page that goes on for several pages. So there's another possibility, and that might not have a cost. And then within the geography, there are specific area publications around through the county. And the local newspapers, there's a Mount Vernon Gazette, again, feature article, photo, no cost. And then within the Fairfax County government agencies, more publicizing. And then with the public and nonprofit and private organizations. As I was writing this, I kept going back to the basic document and picking up words that I could use in my remarks. And also, by just looking at those words, it's kind of remembering the pluses and the challenges. Thank you.
A quick shout out thank you to Peter Wynn and to Kenneth Vaughn from UVA and Virginia Tech for all of their, they've been here every step of the way, and we so appreciate their support of this whole project. So I just want to give a
All right. Well, again, Melissa Jonas with the Housing Authority, and I also want to thank you all again for being here today and yesterday and putting so much thought into everything that you did. I was blown away by your presentations, by your knowledge, by the way you incorporated technology, policy, and stepped into, at times, things that you had no idea about. You've challenged us to think more, and you've challenged the experts in the room to think more, and we hope that some of these ideas can continue to flourish. So we're so excited to let you know what we decided, and we're going to sort of collaborate here, like you demonstrated so well in our presentation.
All right. Thanks, Melissa. So, I said before, I'm Sean Mallon. This was awesome. You guys did great. Thanks for coming out to do this. And you actually did so well that you made our jobs very hard.
Which was done an hour ago.
Yeah. If you see a few kind of bruises and scratches, it's because we had some, tough times behind that door. So I'm going to start with the third place finisher. And ETSA, there are prizes for everybody.
So
Right?
basically,
This is an unusual situation.
It's an unusual situation because there's prizes for everybody.
All winners. That one is showing up. That's right. That one is showing up. So let me call up for the third place prize. Should we bring them up here and then talk about it? Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. So House Guides number 1, the first House Guides team. So congratulations to you guys. What we really liked about your presentation here, we thought you had a really good data collection schema. We liked the fact that you were helping this kind of demand generation, helping people to understand what the shortfall in housing stock was for accessibility needs. And we talked about maybe as a point of caution for you about relying too much on non-authoritative sources and trying to focus as much as you can on authoritative data sources as you think more about pulling this together. We thought it was really good. Do you guys have anything else that you wanted to add about this?
One of the unique features you guys had, which we encourage you to get out somehow, is this notion of feedback to the marketplace for those who are doing the investment. You have this demand investment signal, which you're getting through the differentiation of the data. That's unique, and we should continue to pursue that. All right. Well,
Thank
you. Okay. Next, number 2. This is House Guides number 2. He's double dipping. Be equitable when you with the prize, right? Double dipping only goes so far if you want to keep your friends. So we really liked, in your case, that you were very knowledgeable about the Nesterly, and I think that it's one of the most important things when you think about spinning up a new company or a new venture or something like that is to really understand the competitive landscape. That's part of the customer discovery process. So really, we appreciated that. We thought you guys came up with something in the short time that you were involved with doing this. We thought it was a great solution. And I'm going to leave it at that and let the rest of you all chime in.
I was just going to say, I think there's so much that you can do with this, and being aware of policy and taking that into account is just going to make your tool even more powerful. So I would suggest to continue to be aware of that.
And we talk a lot about impact, and but you all came here principally as engineers, and being able to turn a product around and get a minimal viable product MVP in 30 hours, you guys hit it out of the park on that. Nice job.
Thank you.
I think it's also a great resource for workforce housing and also new employees entering the workforce. So definitely university housing, but also people for about a decade after that as well.
Thank you.
All right. All right, number 1, housing.gov. Come on up. All right, guys. Well, congratulations on the first prize. This is not so much a judging criteria because you won on the judging criteria, but we love the fact that you guys came here, you met here, you got to know one another, you did something pretty special by working together. We like the kind of the multidisciplinariness of the team, that you all had different things but also brought different passions into this as well from knowing the market. So that's really great. One of the things that we've noted is that you looked at the solutions that are being used in other jurisdictions. Like I said before about competition is, know what's already out there. There's a lot, before you start spending money to build stuff, find out what's already been built and what's failed and what's succeeded. We thought you, in the demo in particular, demonstrated a really nice kind of user interface, right? Regardless of what ends up behind the curtain, it's nice to see that you've got a sense for what the user experience is going to be. We appreciate the fact that you all participated in the presentation. That was really good. And you also made reference to, reporting and data security in this day and age, both very, very important factors. Anything else?
I think you guys had a great idea of the problem statement and stated that explicitly at the very beginning, and have a really good concept of the barriers that exist in getting people with disabilities located and connected with the housing they need, and that's what a major barrier that is. You showed a good understanding of that problem and developed some creative solutions for addressing it, so thank you.
I would add, and you verbalized it, but I think it was so great to see you guys come from all these different backgrounds and realize that you can apply technology to something beyond what you normally think of with technology. You really got creative and got out of your comfort zone and made a difference.
Well done. Thank you.
Good job on
Thank you.
For the prize winners, you see, check in with Etta. Okay. Right at the end, and
Well,
give her your information and all that. Hey,
don't go
congrats.
anywhere. Well, we want to get a picture and get your information.
All right. The student team prize goes to the student team. The GMU geographers, come on up.
Yeah, switch. There you go.
So congratulations. Look, all of these presentations are great, and it was like I said, it was really hard. And you actually all won on your own merits, and not just because there were prizes to be had for the team. So what we liked about you guys is the kind of the importance of data, not just in what you talked about, but really in what all the teams talked about, right? This was very much of a data hackathon in many respects, right? How do you deal with public databases? How do you deal with crowdsourced data and things of that nature as well, and setting standards where you can, but cleaning data where you don't have standards and whatnot. So, I think it's something that all of the teams need data people as part of them, right? So if any of you all are looking for data people, don't take them before they're finished with their PhDs. Just from a presentation style standpoint, one of the most important things is to let your audience know immediately, very as quickly as possible, what the problem is that you're trying to solve, what your problem statement is. And that wasn't clear to us for a while, right? It was many minutes into the presentation where we started saying, oh yeah, this is what they're trying to say, right? So just be aware of that it's really important in public speaking, and any presentation that you make, be very specific in laying out the problem that you're trying to solve right away.
It turns out your problem that you solved, everybody needs here, right? So it becomes critically important. And we learned that with the fourth group here, right? When they came out, and it was basically one of those things that if they had your solution, then you guys should talk after this. I work with a number of companies that are benefiting from Google's standardization that they did. The mass transit market is, and the personal mobility is just blown open by that. Google's a pretty big company. Think about what you're doing. Is that a chance?
Great job, guys.
Did you want to introduce
So I'm joining the group right now is Tom Fleetwood, Director of the Housing Authority, to talk about one other little nice benefit we'd like to offer.
And Tom, do you want to, you and me talked a little bit after this about your impressions from the group just first, because I know you were inspired.
Sure. I'd like to just first of all say how you guys crushed it. Great job. It is so inspiring and heartening for me, and I know for a number of my colleagues working in housing, to see so many, particularly so many young people come together and work on this issue. Housing affordability, the ability to have a safe, stable, and affordable home is something that's essential to everyone's success. It's essential to every community's success. And as we move forward, and as you begin your careers or continue your careers, the extent to which you can take these incredible brains that you've got and apply your skills to what is a long-standing issue, we'll all profit by it. We'll all benefit from it, and you'll definitely make our world and our community a better place. So thank you for what you've done today. We had I think a very exciting conversation following the presentations today, and I think that there's going to be a good opportunity for us to make even more of a connection in terms of moving these issues forward. Would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
I think I mentioned I run a business accelerator, right? We take companies, we help them go to market faster. We tried last fall to bring in some companies that were interested in solving the affordable housing problem. It's one of the top problems in America. It's probably in other countries as well. But you can't open a paper without seeing a city having trouble with this. And so we need to solve this problem. But we can't do it without brilliant people like you guys solving it. And we don't have enough people doing the innovation in the space. So I'm going to make an offer to you guys. Those of you who want to keep moving forward with this, if you can meet the criteria, which is you got to have a minimal viable product, you have to have either be incorporated, be willing to be incorporated, or associated with an organization to take your product forward. We'll take you into our spring cohort, which starts in April, and we'll help you move forward. It's a 90-day program, but you got to meet the criteria, and we'll work with Tom to try to get this into a pilot project. Okay? Yeah. Wow. So you guys talk about. Let me just say one other thing. The top 3 winners got to do it with the students. We need their architecture, right? Okay.
And just to wrap that up, thank you, because we talk a lot in what we do about partnerships, and it's the only way that we're going to be able to move forward and work to solve the dent in this problem. So you're willing to partner in multiple ways. What you just offered is an amazing opportunity, so thank you.
Good. Thank you, guys. Congratulations.